Hey everyone! Thank you so much for joining us here today. As I mentioned last week, we're going to be spending a little bit of time each week in this series, diving a little bit deeper, talking through some practical implications of some of the concepts we're talking about in our generosity series that we are working through in the month of February. This week, Scott talked about the idea of time and how we can be generous people with our time. And thankfully, I think this is something that we have all figured out. And so we have lots of answers to share. But all joking aside, Scott asked a lot of people on social media just if they had some different questions when it came to time. And what we're going to be doing today is just kind of working through some of those questions, trying to answer them the best that we can. And then at the end, just giving a little bit of advice or tidbits that we have found successful in our adventures of trying to navigate the limited amount of time. Because unlike money, there's not really a way to add time to our life. So we are very much trapped in what we have in those 24 hours a day. So with that, I'm going to dive into some of these questions that Scott was given from our community. So, the first question that someone asked was just the idea of what can I get rid of? What can I clear out immediately? In other words, the power of no or the power of snowballing task for efficiency. Scott, did you have any thoughts or initial reactions when you got that question?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the question I kind of asked was, how do you tend to think about like the management of your time? Like, and I think that is one approach, and it's actually the approach that I think I've struggled with to do effectively, which I'll get to in a minute. Like, one is to say let's prioritize, like, and then operate out of our priorities in those 168 hours we have, and then in another way, there's this like, well, what are the tasks I can just check off the list and be efficient? And I do think like the fundamental tension that person was raising is like we can get lost in efficiency and not be about priority, right? Like I can get really, really good at like the efficient checking off of boxes, but like completely miss the mark about the things that matter.
Hmm.
And like and I know for my part, there are times where I'm like, hanging out in an email inbox and clearing out stuff is more of a coping mechanism or an avoidance of something else I need to like get to,
Sure.
that requires kind of that deep brain space. And so I think that's the fundamental tension.
Hmm.
You can probably relate to it too, of like when we think about time, I think we often think about the idea of what can I check off, what can I get done, and I do think it's valuable. And this is what this person's probably thinking through is like, hey, what are the priorities, and then how do I kind of build that snowball approach? Because if I can get the thing rolling and the object at rest doesn't remain at rest, man, I can clear some stuff out. But I think that's the tension, right? We might
Yeah.
miss some of the actual functional priorities. We need both, and I guess is what I'm saying. And I
Yeah.
get lost in that if I don't know what my priorities are in a given week, and I don't know the life I want to live, and I'm not in agreement or in alignment with people around me about how my time should be valued, I really drift to like I'm an Enneagram 3. Like,
Mhm.
let's achieve, let's get some stuff done. I can say I did this, and this today. I really struggle when it's like I don't know what I did today.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I think too, just another, I guess, angle coming at this question a little bit too. I think there's also this pressure that I think a lot of us feel to say yes to everything, to say yes
Mhm.
to everyone, to every opportunity, to continue to pad our resume, if you will, or our education endeavors, and creating space where we're able to say no to the right things there, and prioritizing. I think even there is important because again, we can get so caught up in saying yes to everything that we aren't even able to get to the most important tasks, the things that are just we need to do. Honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, if you play Foundry Bingo, we say the word season a lot. Like,
Hmm.
mark it on the card, B26 or whatever. We said season again, but I think that
Hmm.
is like the essence of it, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of our lives look like San Diego. Like, it's one season all the time, and
Yeah.
it's just and like I wish it was as beautiful as San Diego, and it's that it frequently is not as beautiful as San Diego is. It's really really like the byproduct of a life lived with kind of a one season approach is usually burnout, fatigue,
Mhm.
a failure to live for what priorities are. And so I do think some of this like numbering our days conversation is like understanding the time that we're in. Understand like I don't even think it's a sin to be busy. Like
Mhm.
it's not a I don't think we're even trying to say like don't be busy, but like let's be strategic
Mhm.
about where those hours go, because the time if you're caring for a parent in a late season of life, your efficiency and your priorities are going to look really different than if you're the CEO of a company that's big board meeting is today, right?
Mhm.
Like you have to steward the season that you're in, which means you have to understand and prayerfully kind of engage like what are the things that matter most in this moment.
Yeah, and I think even acknowledging and knowing where that season fits into your life as a whole,
Yeah,
because I feel like I've heard you say this, but I've heard plenty of people say that like everyone feels like they're in the most busy season of their life, and that
yeah,
their season is the busiest out of everyone. Like that's true if you're a teenager, that's true if you're in college, that's true if
mhm,
you're out of college and you're single or you're married or whatever the case may be. A lot of us feel like we are the busiest people, and trying to have that perspective of things. Like in my life right now, I'm in grad school, I'm working full time, I have 4 kids. Like if this isn't the busiest season of my life, I have a problem. This
right,
should be the busiest
yeah,
season,
it
where
should
then
be.
after grad school is done, now I slow down and I need to have that perspective that like, okay, that was the busiest season. Now what? Now how
Yeah.
have my priorities shifted?
So let me turn this on you. And I know that we
Yeah.
didn't talk about this. Just like, so grad school, four
Mhm.
kids, a marriage, a full time job,
Yeah.
leading during a pandemic. And how do you line up your 168 hours? Right? Like what day, like give a little bit of a glimpse. You're not writing a book on this.
Sure.
I don't know where you have time to write a book on this right now. But if you were just going to say, hey, practically speaking, how do I let what rises to the surface? How do I know what my priorities are in a given week? What are some of your ways of doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that starting off and just saying, "Hey, what are the things that I have to do first?" and the things that I have to do as a dad, as a husband, as an individual, because there just are general things like I have to create time to eat, I have
Mhm,
to create time to be in a relationship with my wife, I have to create time to be in a relationship with my kids. Like those are just givens. And then kind of from there, I think it's the question of, or my job too. On top of that,
mhm,
um, the next question is just what have I chosen to do that I have to do? Like that's grad school. Like I have chosen this burden,
mhm,
and so I can complain about it, or I can just figure out how do I manage this, and then kind of going from there of like after I've kind of scheduled in those types of things, and I do block scheduling, which helps a lot. Kind of how do I create some time for myself? How do I create some time for my family? What would I benefit from doing? I think is a question that I think about often. And what do I want to do? And then I think ultimately trying to weed out anything that like I just feel obligated to do this,
mhm,
but it's my own obligation. It's not that I have to do it for my job. I have to do it um, for my family. It's just I feel this obligation,
mhm,
because oftentimes I have found since I've been in grad school that those are the moments that eat away at the times that I could be generous, or the times that I could invest in my family, because I'm doing things that I feel like I should do as opposed to
mhm.
things that align with my values and vision.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, similarly, I mean, I do think part of it, just being in touch with where I am and
Mhm.
what my priorities need to be in a given season is super important.
Yeah.
Because even think about like, okay, like the life cycle of like your children,
Mhm.
the needs at age one versus the needs at like when my kids were super young, my physical presence mattered. It's not that my emotional presence didn't matter, but if a baby just needs a bottle in their mouth
Mhm.
like to be satisfied, that's not like eye contact and pouring out my heart, like which is I think what a lot of my 15-year-old would desire.
Yeah.
Or a strategic like, hey, like peace out for a little bit, please. You're hovering. And there really is, I think, just I have to be in step with what is God calling me to do in this moment that I maybe in the last season or the last week I didn't need to be doing,
Yeah.
but I need to say yes to it this week. Where
Mhm.
am I? I do kind of a little. Just a little exercise, like the just this little RPM exercise. I journal and kind of go where do I am I where am I relationally, physically, mentally, and spiritually, and then which direction do I see those trending?
Mhm.
And whether those are a lot of times good for me to do to be able to say like I can go back and look at my inputs and go, man, well, physically, I feel really out of step. I think in part because I've let other stuff creep into the time I've carved out,
Mhm.
which either means I have to protect that time more or I need a different plan
Mhm.
for how I'm going to engage it. Because maybe the seasons change. Maybe now I'm the carpool for, the soccer team or the lacrosse team or the choir or whatever. Like, and knowing then how do I need to reorient so that's one for me, like
Yeah.
and I think I know this is like in our most important vital relationships, we get real like weird and romantic about like just the spontaneity of time. Oh, we
Mhm.
should just want, we'd sit, but like I know, I know about you, Austin, but I'm just going to imagine this. But you get me to the point of the night where I plop down on a couch and stop thinking. I'm going to be like asleep in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
If I don't have like carved out at least a vision for how my hours are going to be allocated, like I just sort of drift to my own levels of exhaustion. And I don't think I'm saying there like caffeinate your way to date night or whatever, so much as it is like knowing even in my own head, like, hey, you know what, this is a night where we're not just gonna have dinner together as a family.
Mhm.
We're gonna really carve out some space to be present. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna take a meeting. Which then I think goes back to what you were talking about. Like, I forget the phrasing you used, but like, you really were sort of looking at like the energy level that we have
Oh, yeah.
in a particular thing. Like, where am I going to have maximum energy? Because the hours aren't really created equal.
Mhm.
We all have the equal number of hours, but when we think about like our efficiencies, um, I, I stopped booking in as much as I could morning meetings.
Mm.
I love coffee and I love breakfast, but what I was finding was like I'm taking the relational, like we have this idea session, and like I start dreaming, or someone's pouring their heart out, and I'm emotionally invested, and it takes me an hour to dig out from that.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm like carving into oftentimes some of the best times of like writing or brainstorming or thinking that like as a morning person I am. So it doesn't
Mhm.
always check this out. You could find exceptions on my calendar, but like really trying then even to be strategic about when am I choosing um, a, a time to vision cast and to be
Mhm.
when am I choosing to be with people,
Yeah.
even though I might prefer breakfast food and coffee to lunch and well it's still late afternoon coffee. I'm still drinking coffee. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I that was one of our questions as well, was just, when will I have the most or best energy to do things that I need to do? Which ultimately that's for us to figure out individually of just how things work, how things don't work. And I think trying to then maximize your time,
Mhm.
similar to you, I'm more of a morning person. And so I know if I need to do any creative type of thinking, I'm going to be able to do that better in the morning. I'm going to be able to retain things that I'm reading better in the morning than I would in the afternoon. Whereas those moments are more moments that I'm trying to like keep myself awake, trying to
Mhm.
not doze off there while if I'm reading something. But I think also, navigating as well some of our priorities or the things that we are aligned with, like you were talking about. Like, for example, my wife is not a morning person, and
Mhm.
so something that I have found is when I have done early morning meetings, even if they may benefit me, they don't benefit her, because then they just put her at a deficit where then now she's, home trying to get the kids ready for school by herself.
Yeah.
And I'm off sprinting because I feel great. So
Yeah.
trying to find even that balance with the different seasons of life and different
Mhm.
relationships that we have, I think is also important to that conversation.
Yeah, and I do think this. I mean, I don't think you have to be married to even feel this tension. Like you like seeing the camaraderie and benefit of the people that know your efficiencies
Hmm.
and and the people whose efficiencies you know.
Hmm.
Um, or like even just maybe even say it this way, like when it comes to time, like there's been great value in people saying to me like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that.
Hmm.
Like I don't want everyone to say that, and of course like it, you know you know there's like the church version of that's like, well, you only work 1 hour over the week,
Hmm.
the old joke. But like there is value, I think, in sort of letting my calendar not be dominated by the whims of other people, but letting kind of a few like really speak truth into the season of time that I'm in. I mean, only I'm responsible for the decisions that I make, but but really kind of opening myself up, and so it's pretty easy for me to do if we're strategic with our partners, because it is like there's real
Yeah.
kickback in like you choose this,
Hmm.
it has a ripple effect.
Yep.
Hey, you know, Austin needs a Sabbath day. Well, that sounds really great and fine, except, there's 4 children going, we'd like a father
Yeah.
to pay attention to us. And so, which I know as attention, a lot of people probably that will interact with this will say, like, oh, I know I need a Sabbath day, but like, or a day of rest, or
Mm.
even a day off. Let's just even say that, or but like there's like real burdens of responsibility here, which maybe speaks to like seeing those things as an ally as opposed to like an enemy. Sure,
Yeah.
can do.
Yeah, I think there was a theme definitely in these questions where there were kind of three different questions all asked in terms of the idea of priority,
Mhm.
which we've hit on a little bit here or there. Um, but I think there is some interesting nuance to how we can even talk about some of these. Of one person kind of talked about this idea of like, how do I know how many dinners as a family is enough, or is the drive worth it to go to this thing, or someone else kind of asked the silly question, but a question I think we're all wrestling with, of just how do I stop the sun from setting
Yeah,
so I can get more
sure.
things done. And I think that both of these things point to um, the continued intentionality with prioritization and the intentionality with trying to figure out how we can optimize our schedule. But I think one thing that's also important here is just figuring out what we're okay losing at, figuring out what we're okay dropping the ball with. Like, we don't have unlimited time. We are not God, and sometimes I
Mhm.
think that we have this almost godlike mentality when it comes to our time, that we can just add and add and add and add. But
Mhm.
um, for us, realizing our limitations and enacting them, sometimes that comes in the form of rest, like you're talking about weekly, or that comes in the form of even rest yearly or
Mhm.
daily, even trying to
Yeah,
create a little bit of space each day to have that. But that only comes when we're okay to let people down, to
yeah.
disappoint them, to know, hey, if I'm going to fail on a task or an action, it's going to be this one, and I'm okay kind of getting a C on this action,
Yeah,
if you will.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you said something interesting there that I kind of thought would be good practically for us. Like if we were to
Mm,
think in a moment, just you and I talking, like, hey, how do we do that daily? Like, what's the daily way where we're like maybe like working on the thing versus in the thing, weekly, which is maybe we may talk about Sabbath, and
yeah.
then maybe just like larger scale annually. What are like so if we just broke that down really quick, like what is like a for like you in terms of a daily thing, you I think we've kind of already hit it with like block schedules and things like
Hmm.
that. But maybe it would be good even like what have been some of the like the influences that have maybe informed like a methodology or something that you've employed?
Yeah. I mean, I think that something that sounds so silly. At least I would have said this was really silly about 5 years ago. Daily is the importance of even sleep, and prioritizing that.
Mhm,
I'm not I'm not a person that needs like 8 hours of sleep every single night, but more and more studies come out saying like, hey, you need to actually get some sleep here.
mhm,
Um, I think also trying to find time to each and every day, as much as you can, uh, check in with your significant others, check in with your kids.
mhm,
Just hey, let's take a moment and prioritize this for just a second. But then um, taking time even to say, hey, for the next 15 minutes, for the next 30 minutes, for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to turn off everything. Like our phones have all of these different do not disturb options, which are incredible. Where even the most recent iPhone updates have like you can customize your do not disturbs, where it's
mhm,
like I have one created on my phone where it's like this is one that is, hey, my wife can get through and my coworkers can get through, but everything else for the next hour, I'm kind of blocking out
mhm,
because I need to focus on this thing. Or hey, for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to spend time where no one can get through because I'm going to uh, spend some time in prayer. I'm going to spend some time in my Bible. I'm going to just uh, rest and meditate.
yeah.
I think all of those types of things I think have been helpful for me when I actually do them.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah, when we do them, right? Like,
yeah.
so yeah, yeah, I've got a couple that just in the daily, there's certain I tend to get up the same time every day.
Mhm,
Like, that tends to be one that I just feel like that, like, so yours is bedtime, mine tends to be, uh,
mhm,
start time, because there is, like, a built-in 30 minutes of, like, "Okay, God, help me see." There's a little bit of, like, light journaling, nothing existential, but just directing a little bit. It's getting everyone out of the house then, and then there's like this 30-minute window again, like where I'm trying to get maybe a little bit of action,
mhm,
working. It would take a walk, get the dog going, maybe go to, like, those are some of the things I think that daily kind of keep me centered. And then of course, like we do try to have like I think a while ago tried to set like hey, we try to keep it. This is silly in the pandemic world, but like, hey, 2 nights a week, like
mhm,
we let's we and it's not, we're not perfect at it. There are exceptions. There are, like, we got to give each other grace, but like, let's not live in a constant state of flux because they're, as our kids get older, this is just a little different. Like, there is just this centering that,
mhm,
like, okay, this kind of brings us back in, because with four people out of the house by 7:30, school things, lacrosse practices, whatever, maybe not coming back into a room until 7:30, a couple places where we just got to get back aligned. Let's talk weekly though, really quick. Like, Austin,
mhm.
four kids, grad school,
Yeah.
remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Like, how
Yeah.
on earth, bro?
I mean, in all honesty, I think the last few years when I've been in grad school, it's been really, really difficult,
Mhm,
more than any other time. I think when I have done it well, since I've been in grad school and had 4 kids, it's probably never looked like a full day, just because I don't have that. And so what it more so looks like is trying to carve out, a night, or an afternoon.
mhm,
Both, I have being in grad school, I have to do that both for myself and for my wife, so, hey, Sunday nights are Savannah's night to go and do whatever she wants because
mhm,
she needs some downtime. She needs some time away from the kids. And so this is a night that I'm going to take over parenting and be really intentional about that, which means my priority is not school this night.
mhm.
Um, but trying to find those other um, times where that can function and be part of things. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's quite difficult to find a full day, but trying to
Yeah,
find
I mean,
even what I can.
it's like we try to be Lloyd legalist, and then like, it's like perfection is the enemy of progress sometimes. It's
Yeah.
like, just start somewhere. Like,
Hmm.
starting somewhere, and it's like, hey, I'm just gonna try to grab this block of time, these hours here. I think that was the building blocks of transformational to me.
Mhm.
and then beginning then because like my wife would say to me a couple of times in the past 2 years, particularly COVID pandemic stuff on her way out the door to work, like, do something for yourself today.
Mm.
And I was like, that phrase, like, it, it was like, man, I don't even know what I want.
Yeah.
I don't even know what would be life giving.
Mm.
And it's so, but it helps because when you're just fatigued and you do, I got 4 kids and I got
Mhm.
grad school. It's why we like choose Netflix.
Sure.
It's just why we like, and I think I love a good binge watch, and but like I like I settle for the mean, like,
Mhm.
and as opposed to going, man, what would it be, you know, why suddenly is there a picture of like a graveyard that Scott's been walking through on Instagram? In
Yeah.
part because it was like, man, I want to go. Something that will help me is like having this little history field trip, like gets me
Mhm.
out of, you know, weirdly, like, this is where like I talk about jokingly legalism, like okay, in ancient Jewish culture you wouldn't go get groceries on the Sabbath, right?
Mhm.
But like I go grocery shopping
Yeah.
because like it's not a burden for me. Like it's like a place where no one else can, like, I tend to like be purposeful, and particularly in COVID, no one wants to linger near you or hover over you.
Yeah.
Like I get like it's me, a podcast, and looking for the perfect uh vegetables and snacks that will make the kids excited and think dad's
Yeah.
the greatest. Like
Yeah.
and for whatever reason I found that, like, so like I know Instacart's there, I know
Mhm.
Amazon Fresh or whatever, but like weirdly sometimes I just choose to go grocery shopping,
Yeah.
you know? Um
Yeah, I think trying to figure out what those things are and building them in,
mhm,
I think is huge week to week, and I think the biggest thing, for me, but I think that in general people would benefit from it too, is scheduling this
mhm.
rest. Like you're speaking a little bit more of a fluidity of what those days look like, but it's still an intentional, like, this is a block of time, or this is a day that I'm going to not do something.
Yeah, it's still carved out that from like every
Yeah.
Friday by and large from 8 a.m. to about 2:30 p.m. there is
Hmm.
a block of time where my priority is not what does my inbox want of me?
Yeah.
What do the text messages want of me? Um, it's God help me to trust that you can do more
Hmm.
in it, with 160 hours than I can do with 168. Like,
Yeah.
and but boy, that will always, and I think that's what we're kind of also saying is like this is a constant fight.
Yeah.
Like I think just about the time we think we've got it like solved and we become like this deep well of like, oh, Austin is the Yoda of Sabbath and rest, something else will happen
Yeah.
that will challenge it,
Yeah.
you know?
Definitely.
But I like
Yeah.
what you said, even just in the yearly, I mean, just, I know our
Hmm.
time's growing short. Even just if someone right now were to say, I think a great action step is if they're like, well, this is why I can't do it this week, and next week we got this thing, and I just go, okay, well then put a date on your calendar
Yeah.
right now in May, like, and fight tooth and nail to like dodge everything around that
Hmm.
so that you could do that. And it will be super weird the first time you do it. Like,
Yeah.
you'll feel guilty even, but like that level of like intentionality even maybe what some of us maybe the thing, if
Yeah.
there's like a laundry list of excuses, which
Yeah, I
I'm
feel
pro.
like, for me, I have to have a bird's eye view sometimes of
Mhm.
my calendar, where I can say, "Hey, like, we're putting it on the calendar a month from now. We're gonna spend time together as a family,
Yeah.
and create the whole day to be around that." Or, let's put a date night on the calendar now, because, if not, you just get in the routine of just going and going and going, and there's no space for it, Um, or, hey, I'm going to take some time off of work, because in our church community, I don't think that everyone is taking all of their vacation hours. There's a lot of
Yeah.
folks that are just, working through, the year and ending the year with, extra days that they could have rested, or they could have spent time with their kids or
Yeah.
their family or their friends, or whoever that may be.
Yep.
But trying to put that actually on the calendar, and like you said, holding yourself accountable, and trying to schedule around that too,
Mhm.
so I know that for me, being in grad school, having 4 kids, like my daughter's birthday was 2 weeks ago, and like, hey, we need to create some time for us as a family to celebrate her birthday, which means the like 6 days before that it may feel like I am just running at a crazy pace because
Mhm.
I'm trying to create that extra space, extra time, extra intentionality
Yeah,
on that
that's
day.
good. That's a
Yeah.
really important point. Like, I'm gonna choose to be busier
Hmm.
for X number of days because right here I have this block of something
Yeah.
I actually value, which is again, like, I think what we're talking about. Like, we're not being like busyness is the devil. They just,
Hmm.
but how do we be strategic? Yeah,
Yeah.
so, so good.
Yeah, there's one more question that you were given that I think would is actually a really helpful one to kind of analyze here in a little bit, and that is, uh, what do I do about feeling, did I accomplish enough today? Did I get enough stuff done? Did you have any ideas when you kind of saw that question?
I thought this person is also an Enneagram 3.
Yeah.
No, really, I do feel a little bit like I think that's why the blocking out of things
Hmm.
for me is also helpful. I also think that mental, like, what are the priorities today versus the, um, versus like reacting.
Hmm.
The times I tend to feel like I didn't accomplish anything are days when I tended to react to the whims of others and let
Hmm.
other people's agenda for me define the agenda. Those are, I think, maybe that's not what this person is thinking. I had to play through some, like,
Yeah.
the inbox has to be at 0 and you have to have worked out 2.7 times, which rounds up to 3. Like, your calorie count's got to be under this. Like, I think I've worked through a little bit of that. Increasingly, where I feel least efficient is times when I've let other people
Mm.
co-opt the 168 hours,
Yeah.
and not in like a good Samaritan kind of way. Like, we always like, of course, we have to have margin for the crisis. We have to have margin for
Hmm.
the need on the side of the road. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I think the time when I could say we could have that phone call later, but I allow someone to project a sense of urgency upon me that
Mm.
sometimes they don't even know. Like, there are times I could say to you, Austin, I'm working on something right now, but
Mhm.
could we talk about that at 4 o'clock?
Yeah.
And like, you would say yes, unless there
Mhm.
was some reason for it not to be time sensitive, in which case you go, no, we got to hit this now.
Yeah.
Um, but like, how many times do I like get mad at Austin for hitting me up while I'm doing this thing? And it's not Austin's problem. It's me. It's my problem. It's my failure to
Yeah.
steward the hours God has given me. So that's where I go with it, because it's such a
Mhm.
good, like, if you're an achiever in particular, you tend to view, like, chalk up how many wins did I get today. But
Mm.
increasingly, I've even found now, in my fourth decade, that, like, I don't even like find that to be a win anymore. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just like, now I'm just mad. I'm
Mhm.
mad at them first, but then I'm mad at myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all some good stuff. I think something that helps me as well when it comes to this question, um, is just even taking a step back and trying to assess what is even a successful day. How
Yeah,
am I interpreting that question? Is that through the
yeah,
lens of someone else, as you were talking about here?
yeah.
Or does it match my priorities? Because I think, as you mentioned earlier, the example of like taking care of a parent who maybe is struggling with health, like, it may not feel like you accomplished much that day,
Mhm.
but like in actuality you took care of a human all
Right.
day,
Yeah, yeah,
or a stay-at-home mom who's in their first year of having a newborn. You may not feel like you did much because you changed poopy diapers and tried to teach this kid how to eat food, but
yeah.
in actuality you cared for a
Yeah.
human.
Yes. Is this child still breathing? Right?
Yeah.
Like, it is like, because that is like, and if there's piles of things and you've
Hmm.
you've had to reheat your coffee for the fifth time,
Yeah.
you know, that's just what it is, right?
Yeah, and even just different seasons of work. look
Mhm.
a little bit different, or different seasons of school. Like this quarter that I'm in, I'm taking a class. I'm studying the language of Hebrew, and I've told my wife many times it feels like I'm doing nothing, because much more of my time is spent learning letters, memorizing words, like understanding verb
Mhm.
conjugations. It's spent studying. It's not spent checking things off of a list,
Yeah.
which naturally I want to do. But that's not this course. That's not this season that I'm in. So I also have to come to grips with that a little bit.
Yeah. You just said something really interesting, and I think this like helps with like the Sabbath conversation. I just like said someone gave me advice once that like if I work with my hands for a living, like a
Mm,
good place of rest is to do something like with my intentionally to engage my mind.
mm,
And then if I work with my mind a lot, like to go like a good source of rest is to go do something with my hands. Like, and I have found like again, just from a general point of view, something like that to be really true. And I know that's kind of a spin-off of
mhm,
what you were saying, but I think it goes into, you know, um, yeah, like you're speaking into like where you value efficiency, right? Like
yeah.
there are people that value efficiency. Like it's this is a fight in our or sorry, a discussion
Mhm,
in our marriage, like to say, like I just don't see like I make piles of things, and I'm like it's almost like a priority list. It's an
mm,
unspoken priority list. And my wife just sees clutter. Like that's
mm,
a and that in some so and I say that just to say like we all kind of carry this picture of what is productive, right?
mm,
What is and like being able even to articulate in your own spirit, like you made a value statement, like like
yeah.
yeah, I feel like I'm not as productive or doing anything because right now this is a time where I'm like it's letters and
Mhm,
verbs and not like profound, robust theological history or
yeah.
solving, um, seeing from the place of church history something like, how it might apply to the modern justice movement or something
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of worked through all the questions. Was there anything else, just that you feel like these questions maybe didn't hit on, that you feel like is important to mention here as we kind of close out?
No, I don't think so. I do think there's 100 like probably even more than that like really good resources to like use just like I like have my little system for scheduling management is something that loosely related to like Michael Hyatt's Full Focus or Free to
Mhm.
Focus or whatever that the book is, like that one was really helpful for me. What's one for you, Austin, if you were just like, hey, someone that's going to really baseline start this somewhere, um
Yeah.
is there one that you'd point someone to?
Oh, man. I cannot remember the book that I read. I'll try to find that and throw that in the chat, but, there's a book I read, I think it was last year, um, by this guy that talked about, the power of focus, that, trying to create uninterrupted time, is the most helpful,
Mhm.
to being able to, meet the things that we wanna do, to be able to think creatively. Again, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I'm gonna have to find that, and I'll throw it in the chat afterwards for
Cool. It's
sure.
a good thing we're not getting a kickback there. I think we both like just like stumbled
Yeah,
through.
yeah, definitely.
There's a
Um,
book out there.
yeah. I mean, I think the only other, thing I would add to, this conversation is just that we have the opportunity to be generous in small ways with our time too,
Yeah.
that oftentimes we just run right past. But it's important to try to create those moments. Sometimes that's through, like you were saying, creating space, where I can be interrupted by something or someone in order to meet a need that is there. But it's also just putting basic things down on the calendar. Like I get emails all the time from the Red Cross saying, "Please donate blood, please donate blood, please donate blood." And unless I just put it on the calendar, I don't do it, And so trying to do something as simple as that, of like, what I'm doing is being generous with my time there, of I'm going to give up 15 minutes to help someone, and help their lives. I think is also, very important and very, very helpful as well. So, all right. Well, that's going to wrap up kind of what we were sharing today, talking about time. Scott and I will be back next week at the same time, noon on Thursday, to talk through the idea of gifts. And we look forward to seeing you this Sunday, and then hopefully seeing you again next Thursday. We'll see you.
See ya.